Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaelyn. I am a fourth year PhD candidate in History and African American Studies at Yale University, living in London, creating lifestyle content as a historian in training, and just talking a little bit about my experience, my research, my life in London. And today I have some very big updates for you. I have not done a full life update type video since I had made the decision to move to London. I think I made that video probably back in March. And I'll be honest, I have refilmed this video like 3 different times. And that is because the things that I want to say just keep evolving. And I keep changing my mind and not loving the footage and feeling like there's still so much more I wanted to be able to say. And so today is the day. I've got the matcha. We're sitting here, I'm back in London, back in the flat, and I have a lot to catch you up on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it, I suppose. I guess the best place to start this video is just talking a little bit about what I've been up to, how life has been in London, and then we'll talk a little bit about the things that are changing and some of the updates that I wanted to make, and also talk a little bit about where I'm at with the PhD and the dissertation and all of that. And I originally wanted to do this like really formal, high production type video. And today I ultimately decided that I just wanted to have a nice little casual chat with you. I've got my old Olivia Pope and Associates t-shirt that I got back in community college. It's got like massive holes and it's got a pen stain on it, and this just feels like a good starting point to have just a good, solid, honest chat about life. So grab a matcha, grab a cup of tea, grab a coffee, whatever it is that you want, because this one's gonna be a long one, but I promise that there is a lot that you might want to stick around for. So starting off, I moved to London back in May, and I moved out of my apartment in New Haven. I sold everything. I put some of my things in storage. I shipped a couple of boxes to my partner's flat, and I picked up my life and I moved to a foreign country. And I came here wanting to apply for the HPI visa. There was mixed messages online about whether or not you could actually apply for the visa from within the country. I got here and it turned out you could not, and it wouldn't have really worked anyway because I needed my high school diploma. So I essentially had to wait for my official visa until I had gone back to the States, and I already had a trip planned to go to California for a couple of weeks to visit family and to show my partner around the places where I grew up. And so that is what ultimately led to the decision to just postpone the visa process and to basically just stay in the UK on the visitors agreement between the US and the UK, because as an American citizen, I'm allowed to be in the UK for up to 6 months without a visa. But obviously I wanted to be able to stay here long term, and I wanted the opportunity to potentially work here. So I needed an official visa. So I had to wait for the HPI visa, which meant that I was not able to actually sign for an apartment throughout the summer. This is something that my partner and I had discussed when I was looking for housing. When I was originally looking for housing on my own, I was looking at Facebook groups in order to find a shared living situation or a sublet. I had looked at Airbnb, but ultimately my partner was really generous and he said that I could come and stay with him for the summer. And that has been just a really nice transition. We've been long distance for a full year, and though it was a little rocky at first trying to get used to each other in one space and to get to know each other in a very different context than when we had started dating, it was really enjoyable, and I feel like we became a stronger couple as a result of it. And I began trying to develop friendships in this city. I had been going out and co-working in this city with other creators, with other academics, as well as the girlfriends of the friends of my partner, and it's just been really fun getting to explore the city. I'll be honest, I kind of moved to London a little bit on a whim. I just had this feeling last year when I was doing research here that I was really meant to come back. I had said this in videos before. I don't really know how to describe it. It was just this intuitive feeling that I was meant to return to the UK, and I've had that feeling ever since I went to Oxford. I just feel really at home here. I feel really comfortable here. And when I arrived, I had all the excitement of being in a new city and being really excited by this new journey. But about 2 months in, that's when the doubt started settling in, and I started feeling really homesick and just kept thinking to myself, did I make the wrong move? Is this the right thing? What am I doing? At the same time, I was also really struggling with my dissertation and the PhD and stuff in my personal life. I just had this moment where I thought to myself, should I even stay in London? I need to be here for research, but I don't have to stay. I could technically do my research in a couple of months and I could go back to the States if I wanted to. Just felt very confused and very lost. And I was given the advice that it takes about 3 months to really settle into a place, and that the first month is really spent being excited, the second month is spent doubting, and then the third month is when you really kind of settle into it. And that was definitely indicative of my experience, because by the end of the summer, I really began settling into the city, really finding my people, my routine, and also really finding myself in my research again. And so I left to go back to California at the beginning of September, and originally I had planned on vlogging the trip and getting lots of content while we were there. But ultimately, when I got back home, I just decided that I wanted to take a bit of a step back and just sort out my priorities and just see where my head was at with everything, because moving and trying to figure out things with my PhD and the transition to being a PhD candidate, moving things with the business, and trying to figure out what it is that I actually want going forward. I just wasn't really sure where I was at, and I wanted to use that time to really think and just reflect. And so where I'm at now is that I have come back from an incredible trip in California where I really just focused on being present with my partner, with my family, with my friends, just really enjoying California as a state. I absolutely love my home state. I do really miss living there sometimes. However, this trip also reminded me of just how far I've come and how much I've changed as a person and how much my outlook has shifted. I haven't lived permanently in California since 2019, and though it's a really wonderful place to return to, I really got the sense that London now felt like home. And also during that time, I took a step back and thought about what it was that I really wanted for my career, for my life, for the way that I was spending my time, and just wanting to be more intentional about my decisions instead of making decisions based on other people's expectations or my kind of conflated expectations of what it is that I should want or should be doing. That resulted in the updates that I have for you in this video. So I want to start by talking about my living situation. I have gotten a lot of questions and I understand people's curiosity, but I've held off about talking about my living situation just because I wanted to feel at peace with the decision. I also wanted it to be something that I was choosing for me rather than for the pressure of the internet. To be honest, I felt a lot of pressure from people to move out on my own and to find my own apartment and to do apartment hunting and to show that I could make it on my own. And I had a plan to move in with a roommate. I was planning on moving in with a student who goes to LSE, and that would have meant that we would be finding an apartment in August, but because I had all of these visa delays, it just didn't really line up. And so then I was looking at the possibility of moving out on my own, and I actually found the perfect apartment. It is beautiful. It is a very cute studio. They allow dogs. It's got a gym. It has the perfect connections into central London, and it was within my price range, and it just seemed like everything was lining up. So before my trip, I was making calls to look at potential apartments, and I just kept getting the response that because I'm an American that works at an American university and that has income from America that I would have to pay 6 months up front. This seemed rather universal. There were options that wouldn't require this. However, they weren't in places that I was particularly keen on living in. The other option was to have a British guarantor. And while I have heard that university students that come to London can actually use the university as their guarantor, I don't have a British guarantor. So I was essentially out of luck. And while I had options and I could go into a shared living situation, or I could find another apartment that was on a slightly lower price range or slightly further out of town that wouldn't have such strict requirements, I just immediately got the intuitive sense that I was doing it for the wrong reasons, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was that was wrong. And I was going through the process and realized that I had become really comfortable living with my partner, and I didn't really want to move out, and that I was actually really enjoying the process of building this life together. And the thing that I was missing was this sense of belonging and the sense of home. And while in the past, the way that I found that sense of belonging was kind of charting my own way and finding my own space, I came to the realization that I just didn't necessarily want that as much as I had wanted it back when, for example, I was moving to New Haven. And so I had a conversation with my partner, actually several conversations, about what it was that he wanted in terms of his living situation and what it was that I was wanting and what we thought would be beneficial for the both of us, and ultimately made the decision that we would stay in this flat together for the next year or so until we have a better sense of what my long-term trajectory looks like. I don't know what funding is going to look like after 2024, so I have funding for all of this academic year as well as fall semester next year, and that means that after that point I need to secure fellowships if I don't want to move back to New Haven. So that means I have to hustle and apply for a lot of grant funding. But the thing that I really needed was to feel like the space was mine as well, because my partner has lived in this flat for over a year and it is very much his flat and it was very much his style when I got in. But I had asked that if we were going to officially move in together, that I wanted it to be an intentional choice to make this space something for the both of us. And so, as you can see, there has been some slight changes to the background, and I have added a library to our little office space. And I have to say, I feel so happy with my decision. I don't really talk about my relationship online very much, and I plan to keep it that way. But I just have to say that I've been in a variety of different types of relationships, situationships, various things in the past. I have been in long distance relationships in the past, but I've never actually lived in the same place as a partner. So the transition of living not only in the same city, but in the same space was definitely an adjustment, but my partner's just really special, and I just feel like we complement each other's lifestyles so well, and I'm just really happy to be living here and for the life that we've begun building together, and I'm just excited to see where things go. I really feel like I have a true companion and partner, and I have never really felt that way before, and so I'm just leaning into it. I normally am the staunch, feminist, independent, go-getter type that wants that sense of going it alone and proving that I can go it alone. But since moving to London, I've just kind of changed my tune, and I'm just leaning into the feeling and the intuition, and my gut right now is just telling me that this is good and that this is something that I should be investing in. So I'm just gonna trust it, and I'm just gonna see how it goes. And so far it's been wonderful, and that's all I have to say on the matter. Now we move on to the second big update, which is about my PhD. When I advanced to candidacy and began working on my dissertation, I started going to archives and started in earnest working on the database and doing the reading and just trying to figure out what direction I was heading in. After about 2.5 months of trying to funnel my way through the first couple of stages of working on the dissertation, I started having all of these doubts about whether or not I should continue. And I'm sharing this and being really vulnerable, honestly, because I just don't want people to think that it's just this perfect linear experience where I make these progressions every day or every week and that everything is perfect and that I never have doubts, because that is absolutely not true. About 2 months into working on the dissertation, I very seriously thought about just finding a job and quitting my PhD. I have had thoughts about it in the past, and having had a professional career before going to community college and before ever going to college in general, I knew that I had job opportunities that I could apply for. For the first time since going away to school, I actually started looking at job listings and I started seriously considering applying to them. And I began putting my resume together, thinking about cover letters, and I just had this profound feeling of sadness about my PhD that I just wasn't sure why I was doing it anymore. And so I returned to Oxford at the beginning of August and returned to the archive, and I posted the video about it, so I'm sure you've seen it, but I returned to the room that began my harassment claim against a professor. It was the place where I had my first real experience with early modern historical manuscripts, and it was a really troubling experience, and I hadn't been back since I had gone to Oxford. And so when I went back in August, something just clicked. And I just felt all of this emotion bubbling up that made me realize that I was actually just really afraid of going to the archive. And that I just didn't feel like I was good enough, and I wasn't a good historian, and that I wasn't worthy of my degree, and I wasn't worthy of doing this research. And I don't share this, and I'm not crying for sympathy. This is just how I feel about it, because this is something I wanted for so long. I wanted to become a historian. I wanted to get the training. I loved history as a kid, and when I was in college, I just found this calling to do this work. And since starting my PhD, I just felt like I lost that. I think part of that is due to the pandemic. I think part of that is due to loneliness. I think part of that is due to bouts of anxiety and depression and other things. And so I'm not saying this is the only factor, but I went back to Oxford and suddenly I just felt like the clouds opened up and I started remembering why I did it in the first place. And the other thing that really changed things for me was reading this book. I've talked about this a lot on Instagram, but I picked up A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness because on that video about my return to the Oxford archives, I kept getting all these comments from people saying that I was like the real life Diana Bishop and that it reminded them of A Discovery of Witches. And I had heard of the book and I had heard of the show, but I'm not really a vampires and fantasy and witches type of reader, but I decided to pick it up. And I just felt this immediate connection to Deborah Harkness's work as a historian and the main character in this novel. The way that she writes about Diana Bishop's love of history is how I loved history. And it just reminded me of how much my research matters to me. It just somehow made me question everything, every doubt that I had had, and I just suddenly had this like revival of feeling connected to my research and excited about it, and I suddenly just began just devouring the literature. And I've been reading novels, and I begin seeing different arguments about how I should approach my research in fiction and in the work of literary scholars and art historians. And suddenly my project just became real and it became something of its own. And we also started the writing group at Accepted Society, and it meets every Friday. And the point of why I wanted to do it was honestly kind of selfish. I wanted something in the week that forced me to actually write. Because my greatest fear is that I'm going to do all this research and I'm not actually going to write the dissertation because I get really self-conscious about my writing. And suddenly I just had all of these ideas flowing and I just felt so connected. It just felt like I found my love for history again. I just can't tell you how incredible that feels, but also just how sad it makes me knowing that I've gone these last couple of years just not fully in love with it the way I was in college. All of this is to say that it was stepping out of my comfort zone. It was going back to the spaces that had caused me harm. It was going and reading fiction for fun, and it was just trying to enjoy life that actually just revived my passion for my research. That is also what led me to really take a step back when I was in California, because I wanted to return after this trip and really feel ready to work on my dissertation and also to change the trajectory that I was heading down and rethink my priorities and really commit to being intentional about my time and my friendships and my research and my work. And that ultimately led me to my final update, which is that I have come to the decision to close Accepted Consulting by the end of 2023. This is not a decision I took lightly, and it was not one that I made over the last month. It's been something I've been thinking about for the last about 4 months. But if I'm being even more honest with myself, I've been thinking about wanting to close down Accepted Consulting for about a year now. And the reason is that my life has just changed and my priorities have changed, and I just don't feel as passionate about admissions anymore. I have had some incredible clients. I would not be where I am today had it not been for them and for their stories and for the work that Accepted Consulting did, and for how much I learned about graduate school in the process because of Accepted. But it's just not something I really want to do anymore. While I could keep the business open and I could just have the consultants keep their clients, I just don't want the responsibility and the weight of it. And it has weighed really heavily on me over the last 2 years. I have tried scaling it. I have tried giving it the best opportunities possible. And in the process, we've helped over 600 clients in 3 years. To honor it, I'm going to close out this admission cycle. We're still taking clients up until the end of December. But after that, I am going to shift gears and pour my focus into building the Accepted Society community and trying to make that a space that is accessible and that is navigable, so that way people have access to the type of information that Accepted Consulting offered, but in a way that is hopefully easier to access. I'll keep the courses, but we're just going to be shutting down the one-on-one consulting services. I feel very at peace with this decision. I know that people may not be very happy about it, or that some people may even be kind of sad about this decision. And while it feels like a bit of a loss, I do genuinely feel that we as a team had built something really beautiful and that we helped and worked with so many people that I'm just so proud of. It's just not work that I want to do anymore. There's other things that I want to pour my focus into, and one of those things is Accepted Society, and the other thing is my content. I realized over the summer, and especially during my trip in California, how much I just love photography and videography and content production. It's something that I think is evident because of the way that I create content. It's just something I'm genuinely passionate about and that I keep wanting to learn about. I've taken courses on editing and animation and filmmaking and cinematography and sound design, and I'm just constantly trying to improve my content, and that's where I want to be able to focus. I think that I had stretched myself too thin, And because I got so much praise for how much I was doing online, I think I let that drive a lot of my decisions. It led me to push myself too hard. It led me to push my team too hard. And it just turned me into a person I don't want to be. And it led me to make decisions that I am not particularly proud of. And I have always been driven by the passion for content creation, for sharing information, for trying to make this process as transparent as possible while also trying to remain private about the parts of my life that I want to keep to myself. I'm really proud of what I built. I'm really proud of the people that have worked for Accepted. I'm really proud of our clients, and I'm really proud of everything that has been built. And I just want to move forward by focusing on my dissertation and spending more time with my friends and with my partner and prioritizing my content. I still am running Accepted Society. I want to continue to grow that community because it is one that I genuinely believe in and that I do feel has more longevity and that I feel more passionate about. And so this is a big change, and it's a difficult thing to share. It felt initially like I was quitting or that it was a failure, but I got the same feeling about Accepted that I did about my horseback riding career, which is that when it came down to it, I looked around at what I was doing and realized that all the goals that I had set for myself, all the things that I wanted to accomplish, I had done. And that when I tried to set new goals, it just felt disingenuous. And when I look back 5, 10, 15 years from now, I know that the thing I'm going to regret the most is not dedicating myself to my dissertation and to my relationships. And the thing that I love the most right now in terms of my passions is content creation. And so that's where I want to focus my energy. And I hope that this video resonates with someone and that it also maybe results in you looking at your own priorities and thinking about why is it that you're doing a particular thing? Why are we in graduate school? Why am I taking this job? Why am I in this relationship? Why am I in this friendship? Because I really took stock of everything in my life the last couple of months. It has been a process of both letting go, but also recommitting myself to the things that I perhaps had neglected. And I just feel so much more at peace with where I'm at, and I just am so excited to get working on the dissertation. I'm so happy to be back in London. I have a trip to Oxford with Kate coming up where I'm going to be going and doing research again. I have a video dedicated to a discovery of witches that I'm going to be filming. I just have so many ideas and so many things that I finally feel like I have the energy to pursue and that I actually have the space to pursue. So I will be supporting my current clients through the end of the year, and any return clients I am happy to work with in the future just on the side, but I am officially no longer open for business for admissions related support. If you are still looking for admissions support, my team of consultants are still available and you can book with them, but we are going to be closing out at the end of December and moving on to a new stage of life. And I am just so grateful to you as my community online, to my team, to my support network. And I just think that this is going to be a very positive, fresh new chapter. And while it has been difficult to get to this point, I look forward to seeing what the future holds. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate your time and that you watch my videos at all. It just means a lot to me. I put a lot of love and energy into the content that I create, and I look forward to sharing my next couple of videos with you. So I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.